Hi, this is Mitch Mitchell, and this is going to be my second video of the week, mainly because I had a video for last week and I forgot to upload it. So it went live on Tuesday, and this one's going live on Friday, and then I can get back to my normal schedule on Wednesdays. At least that's my intention. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you come here not a lot, you probably noticed that my background is a little different. That's because my computer happens to be at the shop, getting looked over and getting cleaned up and some other stuff. And so I'm on the laptop, so I'm out in my dining room, and that door behind me is actually my wife's office. So it's open because we got beautiful weather. But you didn't come here for that. You came here for my X-Men Apocalypse review. And so there's going to be maybe a couple spoilers here and there. I'm sorry about that. But it's mainly talking about the premise. So the premise of this movie is that there is this, well, basically a mutant named Apocalypse who could have been the first mutant. And it starts out in 3500 BC, and there's some kind of ceremony going through, and there are some anarchists, aka protesters, aka terrorists, depending on what you want to call it, who basically set things up so that he can't transfer. I guess it turns out that if someone else has a power or something that they can do that he wants, they go through this ceremony, and whatever they have is now transferred to him, and now he just absorbs another power. In this case, they go through some stuff and basically bury him underground. And he's buried underground for over 5,000 years until some other idiots, this is how that seems to work, at least in the movies, decide that he might be the savior they're actually looking for. So they go through a ceremony to bring him back to life. And so Homeboy comes back to life, and he gets out in the world and eventually learns the languages of today, because the languages back then weren't anything like what we had. Decides the world is messed up and he's going to change everything because he should be leading it anyway. Finds a way to get 4 other mutants to basically, follow him around, kind of like his, 4 henchmen, if you will. And it's left to the other X-Men, so to speak, to basically try to take him down. That's the premise of the story. And of course, since, it's an X-Men movie or it's a Marvel movie, they eventually get him. So that's the whole premise of the movie. And, I'm going to, say that I like this movie. I actually did like this movie, but I didn't like this movie as much as Batman v Superman, a movie that a lot of people beat up. And this is just my tale. And the reason, well, there's a few reasons. There's a lot of things in this movie that just, kind of start to get to you. But one reason I liked Batman v Superman over this movie is that it had a lot more backstory in it, even though a lot of people didn't want all that stuff for, the Batman character. It had, a lot of backstory. Whereas in this particular movie, there's tons of mutants. There's tons of them. But you don't know anything about them. Like, for instance, they've got a character who they call Nightcrawler. And he's played by a guy named Kodai Smith McPhee or something like that. Anyway, it's like, where did this guy come from? He looks like the devil. He's got a tail, but he can basically pop in and out. He's black and such. And I'm thinking I remember the character kind of like him in either the second or third of the X-Men movies way back when. I think it was God, I don't remember which one it was, where he was going to try to kill the president and he gets stopped at the last minute. Anyway, this is a younger version of him popping in and out of stuff. And so, you've got this character. It's like, okay, where did he come from? Because obviously he can't change his look, so he's pretty mutant out there. You've got Storm. This is a different Storm than the Halle Berry Storm. This young lady playing her is called Alexandra Shipp. I mean, that's her real name. And basically, it looks like she's supposed to be Egyptian. So I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. She's got an accent. She's Egyptian. How did we get the Halle Berry Storm who didn't have an accent at all? And truthfully, from the cartoon, because I don't remember the comic books, but from the cartoon where Storm was white, okay, we'll just go with that. But she didn't have an accent either. So I didn't quite understand that. Jean Grey. Now, we know her backstory if you saw the third original X-Men movie. With the older characters. We kind of know her backstory. But this is really early. She's young. She's basically a teenage. She's hot. I'm just going to say that. She's hot. Sophie Turner. I mean, she is extremely good looking. I'm just saying that now. And she won't be the last one, by the way. Oh, and by the way, the young lady who played Storm is also pretty. She's pretty, but she was actually prettier before the movie began, where they had her introducing the movie. I'm like, wow, who's that? So she looks right in there. Anyway, we don't get that backstory. And, you know, there are other characters where we really didn't get backstories. For instance, Olivia Munn is in this movie, and she's hot. And she's hot in the movie. And she plays a character called Psylocke, although I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't looked it up. And I'm thinking, who's this? Have we ever seen her in any other movies? And I don't know. But, you know, I'm like, okay, she didn't have any real power. What am I missing here? And I think that was, you know, one of the things that slightly bothered me a little bit. I didn't understand her. There was a guy in the movie who basically, well, I guess they called him Angel. And then he was morphed into this really kind of robotic angel, if you will, or Teflon. I don't know. Suddenly he had metal wings, and he could shoot sword type things or knives out of his wings. It was really odd. But I don't know where he came from. I just didn't. I had no clue. So there were a lot of these people who I didn't really understand where they came from, but there were those I did. One of the strangest is Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. Now, of course, you know, in the original 3 movies, Mystique was kind of a bad guy, or a bad girl, or whatever you want to call it. And now, the way they represent her in this movie, she's a hero. So they've totally changed the history. I mean, unless at some point they're going to say how she went from being a hero to this bad character, who never speaks, by the way, because she speaks a lot right now. That's kind of throwing things off. I think one of the things I've seen a lot of people say is how they've kind of changed the history. It's not like the original Star Trek, the new Star Trek movies that are out, the first of the new movies, because what they did is they basically changed time, so they didn't have to follow anything else that came along. But supposedly in these movies, they go back in time, but it's supposed to still be, you know, how they are, and yet they change up so many things that there's just no way they could ever pull this together. It just can't be done. And one of the complaints that a friend of mine who did her review last week said was that she's not sure that it's fair to new audiences that there's all this history that might be out there, but the only way you know it is if it was in previous movies. And I'm going to say I don't have a problem with that, because that's how I got introduced to the Harry Potter group. In other words, I started with book 5 because I hadn't realized that every year was a new year. And as I was reading the book, I realized, okay, there's some stuff here I must be missing, because they're referencing stuff that must have happened earlier. And that's when I decided, okay, let's go back to book 1, because I didn't know that it was supposed to be a series. And so, you know, that's how those movies have always worked. You know, if you don't watch the Harry Potter movies in order, you're going to miss a lot of stuff. You're just not going to know. And so that's, you know, I had no real problem with that. Where I had some problems in the movie is, well, you know, Apocalypse really isn't all that bad. It's just, let's just tell it like it is. Yeah, he's a powerful being, but you know what? He gets overcome. He picks these horsemen, or whatever terminology you want to use. He gets these 4 people who are supposed to help him out. And there was really not a lot spectacular with them either. I mean, they're easily overcome, you know, in some ways. Yeah, you know, just like I keep referencing some of the older movies, because, you know, they had times where sometimes they were getting their behinds kicked, but in the end, they were able to overcome these other powerful people. So you had an issue with that. It was interesting, the connection that this Apocalypse had with Professor X, or James McAvoy. He plays the part. It was interesting. They had a psychic connection. It was interesting how, you know, they could, Apocalypse kind of could use him to do a whole lot of stuff. And I'm thinking, well, wait, if he could use him to do, you know, some of these magical things, how come he didn't just kill everybody by mind? So that was a plot failure. Michael Fassbender as Magneto, I got to tell you, they began this story about him, and you're looking, saying, okay, isn't that someone we know, whatever? You know, my mind just fully couldn't get there initially. Yes, he had a family, and they did some stuff to his family, and then he just basically lost his mind, and then this guy found him and basically turned him into Super Magneto. And Super Magneto can basically control metals that aren't even there in the ground. So he could just create havoc around the world basically by doing this. Let's just be glad our Magneto couldn't really do that. And I don't know if any of these people were supposed to lose their powers after they got rid of Apocalypse, but still, he was great. He is. I don't know if this guy's ever been in anything else. I'm sorry, I don't know a lot of the younger actors. I just don't. But this guy was good. So he was very good in this movie. You know what? I would give this movie, if I had to rank it, a B- or a C+. And that didn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I'm just saying there were so many plot holes that were missed. It just missed a whole lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of things that at times kind of didn't make sense. Something someone else said is that you got Magneto basically destroying the world by pulling all the metal out, and yet they're able to fly. The X-Men are able to fly a plane in there. You know, go figure. And one of the strange things about this, it shouldn't be, if we know anything about the X-Men universe, is that it turns out that Jean Grey was stronger than Apocalypse. So, so I was like, wow, you know, all you needed was her. All you needed, Dr. X said, you know, just go wild, just take her out. And, you know, we'd have been good. So, you know, overall, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I had a good time. But it could have used some tightening up here and there. But still, you know what? I liked it. I think you should probably go check it out and, you know, decide for yourself. I will say, though, that there's a lot of stuff you might not understand if you've never really seen some of the other movies. For instance, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine makes an appearance in this movie. And I'm not giving that away because that was in the final preview that came out, the final trailer. So you knew he was going to be in this movie. But he ain't necessarily Wolverine. I'm just saying. And, I mean, Homeboy doesn't know who he is and whatever. And you see this connection between him and Jean Grey, which is very interesting because, you know, he literally doesn't age, supposedly, whereas she's this teenager. And we know from the earlier movies that they at least at some point had some kind of relationship. So that's kind of, you know, a little something here. I will say this, and this is so wrong. You know what? I deserve to be smacked for this. But, okay, Sophie Turner versus Femke, whatever her name was. Wow. If it had been this one, I'd have understood this thing about how come he keeps having that pull toward her. Wow. That's all I'm saying. That's wrong. But that's me. Anyway, this is just my type of review on the movie. I think it missed a lot of stuff, but it was still kind of fun to watch. So that's my take on it. Let me know your take on it. And, you know, let's see what happens. And by the way, I hope you saw my other video, which was basically my voting on what I think are the top 5 Marvel movies. So there you go. Some of these will tie into this, and the others are just part of the Marvel Universe. So anyhow, that's me. I'm out. Y'all take care, and maybe next time I'll be back in my own environment. You take care. Have a wonderful day.